So today what we're going to be talking about is Canvus 3.0. Super exciting. It's our brand new version of Canvus, the software platform. Now, most of what I show you today is going to be back-end stuff. It's going to be things that have been implemented that allow you to effectively manage your content on a user-by-user basis, rather than password protecting content and password protecting files. Now you have a platform that you can sign into, and then you can share data between users, much like you do with Google Drive or with SharePoint. The idea behind it is that rather than having a device-based model whereby each device is its own little silo of data, you have a centralized data repository and everything else is connected to that. And then you manage access to which data allocation you want to from the dashboard. So two things on screen at the moment. This left-hand panel here is Canvus. On the right-hand side over here is the dashboard. And the dashboard is where I'm going to be focusing a lot of our time today, just so that you get an idea and impression of how it works and what you can and can't do with it. So let's begin. First thing that's changed, we now have the option to define a default canvas. And the default canvas is simply the canvas that opens up when you first launch the software. Previously, it always opened up the last canvas that you were in, and that caused some challenges with some clients. And we've changed it now so that you can specify a default canvas. If you don't specify a default canvas, then it will revert to the old model of opening the last canvas that you had open. You can choose to open a specific canvas, or you can choose to restore a previous session. Now, if I choose to open a previous canvas, it's going to give me a list of canvases that are available to me. So here I have my local canvases. Now, this is the standard model that Canvus has operated on since version 1.7, 1.8. So this will be the model that you guys have at the moment, which is a big single root folder of a bunch of canvases. I can put subfolders in here and move things around, but it's one general root that's available to absolutely everybody. The only security that I have is to open a canvas and then go into the settings and set a specific password for that canvas, right? And if I do that, it will hide the content of that canvas. Let's go for this. So now when I go back, the canvas is locked, so I can't see a thumbnail of it. And if I try to open it, or if I try to delete it, or I try to move it, it's going to ask me for the password. Yeah, so hopefully that's the model that everybody's used to. So if that's all you want to do, then nothing really changes in 3.0 from the front end use case, right? You can carry on doing it exactly the same way that you do it right now. However, what you're also able to do is add servers. Now, servers allow you to have a remote or network-based data repository. They are managed servers, and they do require you to register and or sign in. So if I sign out of both of my servers here, you can see that I have one server here and another server here. These are two different geographies. This one is my server in the UK, and this one is my colleague's server in the US. If I choose to sign into one of those and click the sign in button, it's going to pop up with a browsered entity here that's going to ask me to sign in. Yeah, I've got a couple of different options. I can sign in using my username and password, or I can sign in using a QR code. Now, the QR code is interesting because what that does is it enables effective two-factor authentication. So rather than me signing in on the video wall at the front of the room, I simply take out my phone, as you see here. I point it at the screen, it recognizes that QR code, and it gives me a website to go to. And the website that it takes me to looks like this. Ooh, unhelpfully, there we go. Looks like that. So it's asking me for my username and password. So I can register my username and password here and then sign in. So once I'm signed in on the device, every time I then scan a QR code, it's simply going to ask me just to authenticate. And so it will say, do you want to authenticate and activate this session? I say yes. It says authenticated, and I'm instantly logged in on the video wall. So it's managed so that you're not sort of walking up to the screen and typing in your password on the screen and everyone can see that. No, I have my device. My device is already pre-authorized onto the system. Scan the QR code, hit authenticate, boom, I'm straight away logged in. Yeah. And that then lets me open canvases that are stored on this remote server, which in this case is in the cloud, but it can just as easily be in a data center or local to your system. Yeah. Okay. So how does the servers work, and how did I create the account on the server for me to be able to log in? Well, that's where the dashboard comes in. So over here on the right-hand side is the server dashboard. Now, once I've installed the server software onto the device that's going to act as my server, so usually that's a virtual machine, either a Windows Server virtual machine or a Ubuntu virtual machine, it will create a admin account for me based on the information I've given it in the install script. Then I can open up the browser window and sign in. And then from there, I have control over how I manage the users, how I manage groups. I have a dashboard that shows me how many people are connected, when they're connected, what they're doing. I can come down here and look at the general settings. So what is your domain? So Canvus server will now automatically generate self-signed SSL certificates if you give it the correct domain. Now, these are self-signed, so they will still throw an error message, but they do allow you to connect and continue configuring the system. Your different types of authentication. So we have general sign-up restrictions. So the first thing that you probably want to turn on is require admin approval. What that means is that when a user signs up to the platform by going to the page that you see here. So if I go to Canvus multi-site, just in my browser, I can show you how that looks. Log in. Let me open a new incognito window. So here I have a register now button. So I can click on this. I can come in here, I can register with another email address that I own. I can choose a password. Let's just give it this one. That's not correct. And it's failed to send an email because my email settings are not configured, but you get the idea. New users can sign up here. And then what that will do is it will send an email to the admin requesting that the admin approve that new user, right? The other thing that you can do is restrict it to certain domains. So you can say, no, only people from multi-taction can register for this platform, or KPMG, or whatever domain that you are looking to manage. Yeah. We have different options for password authentication. So again, these are self-explanatory. Are you going to let new people sign up, and do you want to be able to allow those users to sign in via the users.login using their password? And then the coolest thing is SAML authentication. So SAML authentication basically says, look, I don't want multi-taction's server to do the user-based authentication. I already have user-based authentication, right? I already have Google OAuth authentication, or I already have Amazon authentication, or I already have Facebook Workgroup authentication, or I already have Microsoft Active Directory authentication, right? I already have a server that authorizes my users to access my data network resources. So I don't want to have to duplicate all of that, right? What I want to happen is that when somebody goes to Canvus, it sends them over to my AD service. And from there, I will authenticate the user, and then I'll hand you back a token that says, yes, this is an active user that I am happy to access the data resources, and boom, it will log you in. And so here is where you would configure that, right? So you have a target URL, a certificate fingerprint, and identity ID based on the ACS URL for the callback service from Active Directory or Amazon Web Services. And the details of how to do this are in the manual. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's good to know that this is how it works and this is how it functions. And then the QR code authentication effectively says, do you want to be able to have someone scan a QR code and log in, or do you want to have them manually type the password in? Email services, SMTP host, port, username, password, and then which authentication security level you want for that. Details of the message, fairly obvious. You can now activate it, the licenses here. And so no longer do you need to go to the command line to activate server. You can add new licenses here and activate your server whenever you like. And then finally, the dashboard provides an audit log of what was used, when they did it, and how. So this is the list of me signing in and signing out and using my guest account, etc., etc. Yeah, and so I attempted to register J4B at Effective Tech. Yeah. So all of these things are possible, and you can export the CSV and things like that. So that is the settings section. But what about groups? So groups basically are also able to be AD managed, but they effectively say these group of users can all access each other's data if it's shared with that group. So if I go to Canvases, I can give you an example of that. Let's just quickly create a group. Let's call it demo. So now when I go to my Canvas list, I've got my Canvas here, and I look at who I'm sharing it with, and I can add permissions to who I want to share it with. So I can share it with guest users. So let's add guest users in view only mode. I can also share it with the demo group in editor mode. And then I can also come down here and deny them access if I wanted to, or I can just remove them from the group. Yeah. So all of these gives me the option of how I want to manage and facilitate this workshop. Now, down here at the bottom, you'll see that there is a link, and that is a link to Canvus. Now, the link to Canvus is quite clever, because if I copy that link, and then I paste it into an email, let's send an email to myself. Sorry, just so you can see that. Come join me, J-Paul. So just send the link, hit send. And now on my laptop, I'm going to go into that device. So quickly share my laptop screen. Okay, and we want to go to Chrome. So list of apps. Google Chrome. I'm going to sign in quickly. And what that link is going to enable me to do is just with one button push, it's going to say, do you want to open this in Canvas? And when I say yes, it's going to open up Canvas on my laptop. It's going to connect me to the server, and then it's going to automatically join the session as a guest without me having to log in or anything. So I click on the link. It takes me to the site that says, do you want to open this in Canvas? Yes, let's open it in Canvas. It gives me the usual message that you would see with Zoom or anything else that says, hey, this is trying to open an application. Are you sure you want that to happen? I say, yes, open it in empty Canvas. And then my laptop's going to launch empty Canvas, hopefully. I'm going to get 3 copies of empty Canvas open up in a second now, aren't I? Yeah, there we go. Oh, as I said, I'm going to get 3 copies opening up now. I'm not patient enough, everyone. I'm not patient enough. And so as you can see, it automatically opens the canvas, joins the session, and gives me access to exactly the same thing that's going on my screen. And so you can see that if I were to move, let me just. Oh dear. My laptop's not very happy with the heat, I think, but you get the idea that it will open up Canvas on the remote client device. It will join him into the session as a guest. And because the guest has view mode enabled here, I will be able to then view that application, view that session, and be able to interact and work with the content without having to do anything else. Yeah, and if I wanted to, I could set the guest to an editor, and then they can make changes, and those changes will be saved, and all of those updates happen on the fly, so I can update them as we go. So hopefully you can see that how useful that can be, and why that's an amazing addition to the tool set that we've got here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the interface now. So we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover on the dashboard. We've spoken about users, we've spoken about groups, we've spoken about Canvas permissions in the sharing section. Demo Canvas, you will all know what a demo Canvas is. It says it can, or basically do the changes get saved all the time, or do you have to hit the save button to save the changes? And so that's what this one's here for. So I can hit the restore button, and it will update the Canvas state for that application. You'll see that my changes are discarded. And so if I unpin this, move it back down here where I want it, pin it, and then hit save, now it will update that demo canvas to the saved state. So there's a bunch of things that I can do with the dashboard. I don't have to have the dashboard open in a remote window. I can open the dashboard within Canvas. So there's no requirement for me to have the dashboard open on a remote device. I can simply have it on the same device that I use every day. And as you can see here, I've just got Canvas running full screen now. And then when I authenticate, it's going to sign me into the dashboard. And then from there, I have the same options inside Canvas as you saw me using outside Canvas. Yeah. So that's quite a useful tool set. Everything else works exactly the same way. So browsers are still browsers. Videos still play with audio embedded. Images are still images, PDFs still page through, and annotations are still embedded. A couple of things that have changed, and the first one is the menu system. So you'll notice that we have this much nicer, separate, individualized menu system. This is an intelligent menu system. So if I were to grab a note, for example, and I move it over here to the edge, it moves the menu system over to this side where I can still see it. Unlike the old system whereby you had to move the note or move your viewport to the point that you could see the menu, now the menu will accommodate you. So wherever you have the content, if the menu can't be shown because there's something in the way, it will move the menu to somewhere where it tries to give you access to the content. The buttons will be the familiar buttons. You still have pin to lock it in place. You still have your ink color, palette, and your pen thickness. And then the more button will expand this to let you choose the color of the note, email it to a client, set it full screen, so project it to an external source, take a snapshot, copy the note, etc., etc. Yeah. And so these are all the buttons that you'll be familiar with from standard Canvas. One thing that has moved, and it does come up quite often, the maximize button is now up here next to the close button. So it's much more like traditional Windows. If you want to set this full screen, that you click the maximize button, and then when I exit, it will take me back. If I want to close it, I simply close it and it says, are you sure you want to delete this? Yes, I'm sure I want to delete this. And so those are some of the differences for the menu structure. Now, obviously, different elements will have different options in the more button, but that's how it used to be as well. The only difference is now, instead of having a circular button that says more, you now have a 3-dot button that opens up a slidey menu that lets you choose how you want your interface to look. Yeah, the icons are very similar to how they were before, so nothing has significantly changed there. So there shouldn't be any issues or challenges from your users as to how do I use it, or I can't find this, or I can't do that. Yeah. We spoke briefly earlier about some of the things that have changed up here. In the settings menu now has a lot more options to give you more control about codis allocation, demo canvases, the default client for this device, etc., the background grid, and any password controls that have been implemented there. Okay, so the next really cool feature, and this has been driven primarily by our user base and their requests. If I log into a website on here, like this one, for example, this is not going to work because it's a demo canvas. So let me just create a new canvas and show you how that feature works. Demo of login retention. So many of our clients use OneDrive to do their storage, and or SharePoint.com. They're both effectively the same thing. And the thing about OneDrive is that if you open a canvas and then reopen that canvas, it's going to make you log in and then log in and then log in every single time. And so we were asked, look, can we not just have it so that we log in once to that session and then it remembers it every time we reopen that canvas? And we said, well, no, unfortunately, because we don't have user-based models, it's not practical for us to do that. However, with our new software, we are able to do that because we now have a user that's signed in. So we can do session-based authentication. And so now when I sign in to here, okay, let's try that again. Hey, there we go. I say, yes, I want to stay signed in. Thank you very much. And now from here, I can come into any of these objects and I can open all of those details. And it's just like I'm running PowerPoint or Excel or Word inside Canvas. Each of these is a full version of Excel. I can fully interact with it. I can enter the details in all of the cells. I can draw on it if I want to use the editing platform. I can run this full screen, so we can have PowerPoint on screen, go maximize, and all of my gestures are embedded. So I have the animations. I click on start. It takes me to the next slide. It's just like having PowerPoint embedded. And the really cool thing is the next time that I come to this canvas, it should still be there. So a couple of days go by and we're working on some other project. And now we're going back to do the demo on this. And when I open it, it should automatically authenticate and log me into each of those browsers. So my PowerPoint and everything is ready to go, ready for me to do my demo. Yeah. Now, this is exactly user-based authentication. So up here it says JPaulB is signed in to the JP Canvus multi-site server, and that's how it's remembering my session ID. If I'm not logged in as me, if I'm logged in as a guest, so let me just make this Canvus accessible to guests. So we're going to come in here, we're going to add permission to guests, we're going to make guests an editor as well. So now when I log out, now I'm signed out, I can come in here, I can go to guest, and it shows me that I'm signed in as guest. I have access to these two canvases. If I go into this canvas, you'll notice it doesn't log me into any of those browser windows, right? And that's because I'm currently the guest user. If I split the canvas and then I sign in as JPaul, let's sign in. Scan the code, authenticate. Now when I go here, again, it signs me in and my session's active again. So it's an incredibly good way of managing multi-user sessions and deriving browser-based interactions. All of the details are still there from before. So for those of you who didn't know, we had a recently launched feature that lets you run PowerPoint files inside a virtual machine or a Word file inside a virtual machine. So if I just look for a Word document, and so when I open that document, it should, I don't have it configured for RDP, but I can run RDP because this is an RTF, not a .doc. Despite it having a Word icon, it's not actually a Word icon. So let's go and actually find a actual Word document. I'm not sure what this is, so apologies if it doesn't work. No, it's a docx. Well, look, I can come in here, I can launch an RDP, I can launch a virtual machine. The virtual machine logs in, and now I have a full copy of Windows. This is actually Windows 11, for those of you who haven't seen it yet. And from there, I can come in here, I can run PowerPoint or any other application that I want to run. And it's a full version of PowerPoint. All of the details are there. Remove any restricted fonts. And so again, I have a full version of PowerPoint that I can run full screen. And then again, it's running with the animation. And this could be AutoCAD or any other third-party application running in a virtual machine that has all of the implementations done for you. Yep. And so that's running PowerPoint in a virtual machine. At this point, I've run out of new shiny things to tell you about, so I'm going to open the floor to any questions and we'll go from there. Does anyone have any questions? You can type them in the Q&A. So we've got Ryan asking, when can we upgrade to the new version? Straight away. So if you go to our website, which is apps.multitaction.com, looks like this, apps.multitaction.com. I'm going to paste it in the chat for everybody, and I will paste it into the reply here as well. Okay. So you can click that link. You will need to register, but by register, all you need to do is put in a username and password. So you click sign up. You put in a username and password. It can be any email address you like, and then click create account. It will create an account for you. You'll get an email that says click here to prove that this is your email address. Then you'll be able to log in. Once you're logged in, you will see that it says straight away Canvus downloads, and there you go, 3.0 for Windows and 3.0 for Ubuntu. And then you have a Canvus for Server 3.0 and a Canvus Server 3.0 for Windows. So all of those options are there for you. You can download those and install them immediately. It will migrate all of your data across. So what it does is it creates a full backup, and then it imports each of your canvases one by one into the guest account. Yeah, so into the local Canvases guest account. If you then want to allocate them to individuals as an admin, you need to go in and drag and drop them into the relevant folder. Yeah, you only need to do that once. It's just for the initial setup. Once they're allocated to a user, they'll be allocated to the user. Okay. Okay, next question we have, is PowerPoint running on the RDP? So two options. In this case, this is a browser, right? If I come in here, you'll see that it's a browser. It's just SharePoint.com. I signed in. I picked the PowerPoint that I wanted to run. I click the PowerPoint and boom, it just fires it straight up in a browser. I don't have to log in. I've already logged in once, so don't need to log in again. If I want to go full screen, I simply pin it so that I can interact with the window. And then I set PowerPoint to full screen first, and then I set the window to full screen. And now I have PowerPoint running full screen. I can swipe left, swipe right to animate through my PowerPoint slides. And when I get to the end, it gets to the end of the slideshow and it takes me back to showing PowerPoint exactly the same as it does on your laptop, right? If, however, you have some specific application that won't run in a browser, then you can launch a remote desktop client and connect to a virtual machine or a physical machine, and then you can run whatever it is that you were running on that virtual machine or physical machine. Because this is full Windows. So I have a full Windows desktop. I can run whatever I want. Okay, is the VM is on the same PC as Canvus? Okay, AD, it can be. Where the virtual machine is entirely up to you. In this case, this is a virtual machine that's running in a Amazon Web free tier Windows box that I just fired up for today's session. And then I'll delete it at the end of the session because I don't need an RDP generally, but this is where I've done it. Alternatively, you can create a virtual machine using VirtualBox, install Windows on that, on the Canvus server, and then point the Canvus client at the Canvus client with the virtual machine running on it. So yes, that can be done if you want to. Personally, we recommend running it on an external box. Okay, can multiple users co-author IG PowerPoint files on the VM at the same time? On the VM at the same time. So you can have multiple people co-authoring it in a browser window, but it looks like in a virtual machine, the two users need to be on separate physical devices in order to be able to co-author. Okay. Okay, Mark Jensen says, I'm new to Canvas. Can you explain more about how the doc and Excel applications are running in a virtual machine? Yes. Basically, this is a RDP connection to a Windows box. It doesn't have to be a virtual machine. It can be a physical machine. It's just a copy of Windows running on some kind of hardware, virtualized or real, somewhere on the network. And then I have configured Canvus to know what the address is for that box. And then I say connect to it, and it will launch an RDP session. Now, because this is Windows Pro and not Windows Server, you can only have one active RDP connection to that Windows license, which is why it kicks the last one out. And if I click retry, it's going to kick this one in and kick this one out. And so, because that's how Windows works. But if this was a Windows Server 2019, I would be able to connect to multiple virtual sessions all at the same time. And that's how it works. From there, I can open up whatever application it is that I'm interacting with, right? If it's PowerPoint or Word, because it's a full virtual machine. So I can run Chrome on it. I can come into the Start menu here and launch Paint. Whatever it is that I want to run, I can run on this box, because it is a full Windows box, and what I run is whatever I want to run. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, Mark. Do our licenses again as a user-based licensing model? So Ryan, there is no user-based licensing model yet for the licenses. So the licenses are still device-based. So every device that has Canvas client installed needs a license, and the server needs a license. We are looking to transition to a user-based licensing model once that model is established. So we're going to transition over the next 12 months as people's licenses expire. We'll talk through what our options are for moving to a licensing-based model. So right now, the licensing model stays exactly the same as it was before. You simply have a whole bunch of new features that you can implement to do user-based authentication and data management. Okay. Is it still possible to share Canvas universally across a server without requiring a login, or can you allow access to all users? Yeah, Paul. So basically, anything that is created under the guest account is visible to everyone, right? So if I sign out here and then I go to the server here, I'm automatically registered as a guest. So I can create a new guest canvas, open that canvas up, and now this guest canvas will be visible to anyone who signs in. Yeah, so if I sign in as me again, it will automatically give me access to that canvas because I have access to guest canvases, because everyone has access to guest canvases. Yeah. And so there you go. I can look at the guest canvases. There's the new canvas. I can open it, and I have edit rights that I can edit it. Yeah. So yes, absolutely, anyone can access any canvas that is a guest canvas, and those are universally accessible to everyone in the same way. I'm assuming Google Drive authentication works in a similar way. Yeah, it doesn't work in a similar way. It works in exactly the same way. There is no difference whatsoever. So I can sign into, and so now I'm signed into my work account. Yeah, and from there I can go to Google Drive, and we can open up a spreadsheet. And there we go, we've got a spreadsheet. We can go to, let's go for slides. We can open up a Google Slides document. And these work exactly the same way as I was showing you earlier, in that I can move and resize and interact with them in the same way. Oh, and it's working here. So it looks like the typing thing must have been a glitch, because I can type into these. And just the same way, if you present it, it will go full screen, and then I can set it full screen, and now I have my swipe left, swipe right type interactions, or I can click and it will walk me through the PowerPoint, or in this case, Google Slides document. Yep, so it doesn't matter whether you are in whether you're using Microsoft, or whether you're using Amazon, or whether you're using Xero, or whether you're using Google Drive. It doesn't matter. It's session-based authentication. Is all of the configuration for the virtual machine location address done on the back end or in the web interface you demonstrated earlier? Is all the configuration of the virtual machine? So the virtual machine. So you're talking about the RDP session. Is that right, Paul? If you just let me know in chat whether you are talking about the virtual machine or not. When you say virtual machine, are you talking about the RDP or are you talking about the installation for Canvas server? The RDP. Okay, so the way that this is done is you create the machine that you're going to connect to. So in this case, it's just Windows, right? So if I open Windows here and I go Windows RDP client and I connect to that same machine, so 109, it's going to ask me to log in, and then it's going to take over my whole screen because it's very helpful. But you can see this is just a Windows RDP client, right? It's the standard Windows remote desktop protocol remotely connecting to any Windows device. And you do that by going into settings. I'm not sure where the settings window is opened now, but it's around here somewhere, I guess. There you go. And then you go to System, Remote Desktop, and then Enable Remote Desktop. Yeah, obviously, if it's Windows Server 2019 that you have configured that you're going to connect to, then you don't need to do that. But under Windows Pro, you'll need to turn RDP on in order to be able to connect to it. And then what you do on your client device, you need to configure the connection to that server or that Windows device using the config file. So in this case, it's mtcanvus.ini, and there is an entry in here that is remote desktop. And so what we have here is we have the host where you're going to connect to. If you want to pre-authenticate, you can put the username and password in here. The maximum number of connections that's allowed to that server, in this case, 1. Show server in the list, and you can either put false or true. If you spell it correctly, it works. And then you can associate the file extensions that you want to run with that server. And then you can put some extra arguments in, like the width and the height and things like that. So all of this is configured inside here. And then when you start Canvus, it will go and grab those settings, and that's how it uses its. That's how it understands what it can launch and where it can launch it. And so now when I run Canvus, and we pop it over here, if I restore the previous session, it's going to take me back here, log me back in, and then from here, what I can do is add that document that we added earlier. Was it in? Can add that Word document, and you see it has an RDP button here, and that's because I've said open up RDP sessions for anything that is .doc, .docx, .ppt, .pptx, .xls, .xlsx. So when I click that button, it's going to automatically open this Word file in that virtual machine. And it's failed because it was blocked by the policy form on the server. So the RDP needs to be configured to support remote application upload. But in any case, I can still launch it as a full RDP. Yeah. So hopefully that answers that question. You configure it on the client, so it's a per client configuration. And that's important because you need to be on the same network for the RDP to work. So you don't want to configure it on the server because someone connecting to the server might be in a totally different country and therefore doesn't have access to your RDP server. And so it's configured on a per client basis, not on a per server basis. Okay, Canvus authentication onto the RDP server. Is it saved between sessions? Could the RDP server be a system that requires AD authentication? Yes, the authentication to the Canvus server It's not saved between sessions. Every time you connect to an RDP server, it will force you to authenticate. It doesn't offer any option because, and that's a Windows policy thing. That's nothing to do with us. Every single connection to an RDP server, so that's the laptop that you're connecting to via RDP or the Windows Server 2019 instance, every connection needs to be authenticated each time. If you put the username and password in the file that I showed you here, with the remote connection information, then it will automatically put that username and password in for you. However, this is a clear text file, so that might be something that you guys don't want to do. In which case, you could use your AD authentication. So you would leave these blank, right? You would have these commented out, and then it will ask you to authenticate when you click on the button. Yeah. And so when I start the server, it's not going to do it this time because it only loads this file when it starts. But if I restart Canvus, it will ask me to authenticate each time then. Does the RDP display to all connected users or just the local client? So the RDP session is rendered on the local client. The distinction is that you can broadcast it to any remote users as a video stream. So I can show you that now if I just pull up this Canvas on my laptop. So I'm in the same session here as is on the main wall. I'm just going to go to a blank area. We'll restore the previous session, and we'll look at the same viewport as J-Paul's laptop. And so now when I come in here and I open an RDP session, it's going to ask me for the username and password because I didn't put one in the file. And so you'll notice I'm not seeing anything on the laptop screen, right? There's no input coming up on the laptop screen, and that's because I'm not broadcasting it. So once I'm configured and once I'm ready, and I go, okay, I've got my PowerPoint up, I'm ready to go. I've set it to play. I've set it to play. I'm ready to go. I can then hit broadcast. And now it appears on my laptop, right? So on my laptop, I can now zoom in on that. And when I change it here, it changes it at both ends. So whatever I interact with on here, and it's changing on my laptop at the same time. Yeah. And so that's a broadcast video stream. There's no other way of doing it. Unfortunately, Remote Desktop Protocol doesn't allow for multiple endpoints to connect to the same session. Only one person can have a session connected at once. So we enable it via video streaming once you've got it ready to go. And then when you're ready, you can turn it off and it will disappear from all of the remote connections as well. Paul's asked, is the RDP Touch interactive automatically, or do you need to install any files to make Windows Touch interactive in Canvas via RDP? It's an RDP client that's running on here. So exactly the same way as the RDP client that you saw me running in Windows, all of the interaction within the frame is transmitted to the remote end. So there's nothing installed. This is literally a totally vanilla installation of Windows 11 that I fired up on an Amazon virtual machine today. You can tell here, look, it even says please activate Windows. I didn't activate it or anything at all. This was installed at about 11 a.m. UK time this morning. So there's no additional tools installed, nothing at all. All I did was go to settings, enable RDP connections, and then I put the IP address into the config file here, and that was it. Everything else just works. Right, so hopefully that answers all the questions. Okay, sorry, Paul, you asked how do you access it? I think I've shown you that, right? You come to the toolbox menu, and then there's an RDP button. Yeah, you can, if you want, you could have a custom button. So we have a button up here that would launch just the specific application. I don't think it's going to work yet because it's not supported at the moment by my client. So if this was Windows Server rather than Windows Pro, then I would be able to launch Word and only Word. But because it's not, I can't. But yeah, so to access the RDP client, you click on the little toolbox and then you click on RDP, which looks like a little laptop with RDP. And then you can remotely connect to that session. And that can be a laptop. So it can literally be walking into the room with your laptop. You turn RDP on, find out what your IP address is, add the IP address in as a host, and away you go. So that would be super duper easy. Okay, so I've answered all of the questions. Hopefully that's covered everything you guys had a burning inquiry to know. I think at this point the best option is really to download the software and give it a try. If you need a 14-day license for testing these, then drop a message across to Todd. He's the guy who sent you all the invite to this call. And what Todd can do is he can fire up a code for you guys, which will be a 14-day activation for Canvus 3.0 and Canvus Server 3.0. And that way you can have a play, you can download the software and really play around with how it is that you wanted to do it. And I just realized that I was sharing my desktop, sharing my desk, not the desktop. So just once again, to open up the RDP server, it's open up your menu, click on the tool icon here, and then click on the RDP icon here, and it will give you a list of the servers that are available for you to connect to. Fantastic. Right, well, if no one else has any questions, I think that covers everything off. We've perfectly come to the 1-hour session that we had. If anything comes up in the meantime, feel free to drop me an email or drop Todd an email and we'll get back to you. If anyone wants some help transitioning their enterprise over from 2.76 to 3.0, then again, reach out to me or Todd and we'll work through it with you and arrange a suitable time that we can either remotely connect or that our tech support team can assist you. Thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure talking to you all about it. It's exciting times for me as much as you guys. This is all new to me as well. And look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.